I want to start off by talking about Bitcoin's new record, especially since you're the former CEO of WonderFi, which owns and operates two Canadian crypto exchanges. What do you think are some of the factors that helped Bitcoin hit that new record above $112,000? How much of that has to do with yesterday's tech stock rally, as Bitcoin is a risk asset that typically rises and falls alongside those stocks?
Yeah, it's really exciting to see Bitcoin hit an all-time high. Great time to speak with you. I think there's a lot of different factors that are playing into it, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to more demand than supply. And with there's 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be created, and I think you're seeing larger inflows coming from ETFs and this wave of Bitcoin treasury companies that is buying billions of dollars of Bitcoin or raising capital to do that and executing those purchases. And then you're also seeing still tailwinds of US policy changes, the strategic Bitcoin reserve. And then I think a big piece also is this overhang that we've had of regulatory uncertainty in the US, which is starting to lift and is encouraging more M&A and transactions in the space. So I think Bitcoin's already been the best performing investable asset in the last 10 years. I think it's still just getting started at 112,000. And it's also really encouraging to see companies like MicroStrategy continuing to perform extremely well. Also the best performing stock in the last 5 years. I see Bitcoin going much higher from here.
Right, so I take it you do think this momentum will continue. What's your outlook for Bitcoin in the second half of this year? Do you think the cryptocurrency will continue to notch new records? And if so, what will it take exactly?
I think we're just going to continue to see Bitcoin go higher from here. I think 150,000, maybe 200,000 this year. Obviously, we'll see pullbacks along the way, but I think that again, just going back to the supply and demand, we're just going to continue to see more purchases and more ETF inflows, and I think that's just going to continue to support Bitcoin price in the rest of this year.
Switching gears, Crypto Week here in the US kicks off on Monday. The House Financial Services Committee gave the week that name as it's set to discuss the Clarity Act and the Senate's Genius Act, which both seek to regulate the crypto industry. Last month, the Senate passed the Genius Act stablecoin regulation bill. And so I'm wondering, given your experience in the crypto space and your background as a securities lawyer, what do you think about these developments?
I think it's great to see more clarity because, being an operator that has built crypto businesses in the US and in Canada, having uncertainty makes it extremely difficult to start and to grow businesses in the space. We experienced that a lot with WonderFi in the early days when there was a lot of uncertainty around regulation of crypto exchanges, and you see that in the US and with crypto exchanges, but with things like stablecoins as well. So I think the more clarity there is, the easier it is for capital to flow into this sector and for talented operators to continue to grow businesses that are focused on exchanges or stable coins or any of these kind of ancillary things. So I think it's encouraging to see that the administration change is really following through with legislation that is trying to achieve what the goal is, which is to, I think, create better access to crypto and to just sort of grow adoption from a retail perspective and from an institutional perspective.
Now, I want to point to crypto M&A activity since you're the founder and former CEO of WonderFi, which was acquired by Robinhood for nearly $180 million. We have seen several other deals recently. Those include CoreWeave announcing that the cloud infrastructure technology firm will acquire Core Scientific in an effort to meet its AI power needs. Also this month, Coinbase announced that it acquired Liquify, a token management platform designed to help early stage projects. What do you think about all this M&A activity in the space, and what do you attribute it to?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's really great to see more M&A happening within crypto and then also between crypto and TradFi. I think these types of transactions are the most exciting to me. I think when you go back a couple of years or 2 to 3 years, a lot of the crypto focused M&A was different crypto companies merging or acquiring each other, and we're now starting to see this sort of ripple out into larger companies, institutions that are outside of the crypto space that are seeing the potential of digital assets and blockchain in being integrated into their businesses. So I think it's really exciting to see. I do think, being a securities lawyer, by trade, I can never get away from that. I do think that the spur of M&A activity comes from market conditions for sure, primarily. But I think that as there's more clarity from the regulatory side, that also just makes it easier for companies to enter into the space. Because what we've seen for the last decade in crypto is a lot of people, institutions, money wanting to come into the space, but being uncertain about whether it works from a regulatory perspective. And every different fund and company has, restrictions and things that they need to consider. And so as we get more clarity there, we just, see more, free flowing capital and transactions. And I think that's a really good thing. So it's been an exciting year for M&A, certainly.
And sticking with the topic of mergers and acquisitions, Architect Partners points to an exceptional second quarter as it relates to crypto M&A activity, saying it was resoundingly the best quarter ever for such activity. And this comes after M&A activity in the space first reached a record during Q1 of this year. Earlier this week, I spoke with Elliot Chun, a partner with the M&A and financing advisor for crypto firms, and he said that Q3 is off to a great start as well with some of the deals I pointed to earlier in our conversation. So do you expect this momentum will continue into the second half of the year? What's your outlook?
Yeah, I would agree with Elliot. I think there's a lot of transactions, I think, in in the pipeline that have either been announced or are potentially in discussions. And I think it's, yeah, just as the market continues to show strength, there are going to be more transactions that we see in Q3 and Q4 this year.
Now, you used to be the CEO of WonderFi. You're still a chairman there. And so I'm wondering, how has the transition been going amid the merger with Robinhood? What's the latest with that development now that it has been about 2 months since the retail trading platform announced that it will buy the Canadian crypto firm?
So the acquisition is scheduled to complete in July of 2025. So getting close to closing that, and it's really exciting to see this transaction come to fruition. When I started WonderFi in 2021, the goal was to put Canadian crypto on the map, and it was at a time where there were just so many exchanges that were trying to be compliant in Canada, but the regulation there was, Canada is often seen as pretty forward thinking from a regulatory standpoint in crypto, but I really actually think the opposite. I think it's being overly regulated. And so back in 2021, we just saw all these exchanges trying to be compliant, trying to compete for the same customers, and nothing really meaningful was being created there from the perspective of creating a crypto company that could compete on a global scale. And so that's why I started WonderFi, created the exchange, and we built the brand. And what we started to see was that there were a lot of other exchanges in Canada that had great operators and great technology. And so we started to consolidate them. So in the first 2 years, we acquired two of what I think are were the best brands and technology and operators in BitBuy and CoinSquare. And through those acquisitions, we became the largest regulated platform in Canada. When I was operating WonderFi as CEO, we were really actively looking at US expansion as a natural next step now that we had become the largest in Canada. But then at the same time, there were US and international companies that were wanting to enter Canada. And so, those discussions with these different potential partners, to me, Robinhood is the perfect partner for WonderFi. I think they're obviously on an international expansion strategy with the Bitstamp acquisition, the European exchange, and then using WonderFi as a Canadian entry point. I think makes a lot of sense. It's a compliant, regulated company with a track record and a lot of really loyal customers in Canada. And it's really complementary to, in my views, because Robinhood, everybody knows Robinhood for stock trading. And in Canada, they're really isn't a similar product to Robinhood. And so now bringing that product to WonderFi customers, to Canadians is really exciting. So it's really really exciting to see that transaction come together amidst other things that Robinhood is doing, like tokenized equities and bringing private stocks to to retail investors. I think is really consistent with their mission, and really exciting to see.
So, what are you up to now? I see you now had a new startup called XTAO, which is dedicated to a decentralized AI network and is slated to go public in Canada later this month. Can you talk to us about this latest venture? What's your goal with this new company?
Sure. So XTAO, it's the goal is to create the microstrategy of BitTensor. We talked about microstrategy a little bit earlier. I think Michael Saylor's done, an incredible job of bringing Bitcoin to investors that can't access it. And with an asset that's as important as Bitcoin, that's a really important mission. So after WonderFi, I've been exploring what's next and trying to figure out what I wanted to spend my time on. And it's hard to ignore the growth of AI, and so I got more and more excited about that. The deeper that I went down the rabbit hole, but also really terrified of the centralization risk uh, in AI. I think it's the most powerful tool that humanity may ever create, and the fact that there are two or three companies that have control over how that's built and who has access to it is really terrifying. And so I got introduced to BitTensor as I was exploring that problem. And I started to see a lot of the same philosophical roots as Bitcoin. Bitcoin combating centralized control of money, and then BitTensor combating centralized control of AI, and started to see these similarities. And BitTensor for me has emerged as this crypto asset that I think will be a top three asset in the next 2 to 3 years as AI continues to grow and the need for a decentralized AI network that is open and accessible becomes more clear to people. So XTAO is, uh, again, the goal is to become the microstrategy of BitTensor. Will be the first public company that is solely dedicated to BitTensor, and excited to launch it in for our public listing, which is next week.